welcome to the Energy Realities Podcast. My name's Stu Turley, President and CEO of the Sandstone Group. We are living in a wild time right now. I've got two of my podcast hosts today here. We have Irina Slav live from Bulgaria. How are you today, Irina?
I'm great. Thank you, Stu.
You seem so calm with having technical difficulties this morning.
Yeah, amazingly, probably because I'm exhausted with all the heat that we had last week. But it's over now. It's cooler and very, very pleasant.
Well, I'll tell you what. And then not only is it he's a legend in my mind, he's a legend in his own mind. We have David Blackman. He is a Substack author. He's a contributor over there at Forbes contributing author. He's on the Telegraph. He's on the Daily Caller, and he has got his own podcast, The Energy Question. How are you today, dude?
I'm just wonderful, man. It's just like apparently it's just like Bulgaria over here in Texas. You know, it's nice and cool. We're going to be in the low 90s all week for high temperatures, 15 degrees below last year.
Wow.
No.
Yes.
How's your garden doing?
We were between 105 and 110.
We have Tammy Nemeth. She is being victimized of CrowdStrike. She's traveling today. And so if she dials in, we'll be having her jump in. So today, one of our main topics is the energy transition disintegrating right before our own very eyes. And we've got several talking points on this. And this is very, very important. There's a whole thread of energy stories that are going on out there. And David, if you'll tee us up on this kind of thing, the vineyard, the offshore wind had a catastrophe. What happened there?
Well, it's the only big offshore wind farm as part of Biden's massive plan for all this wind generation in the Northeast Atlantic that's come online so far. They had so far this year brought on 10 turbines offshore that were generating until one of the blades of one of the turbines just broke and fell off. And what the company has characterized as an offshore incident, without being specific exactly the nature of the incident. We still don't know more than a week later now. It happened Saturday before last, so 9 days ago. It's right off Nantucket Island, which is where all these wealthy people live, off of Massachusetts coast.
The NIMBYs.
And they awoke Monday morning to beaches littered with enormous chunks of green colored fiberglass foam kind of stuff that is, of course, the inside of the blade that had washed up on shore. Nantucket Island had to close its beaches for several days for the cleanup and may still be closed. I haven't checked this morning. The government came in on Wednesday night and ordered Vineyard Wind to shut down entirely while an investigation was conducted. The company's communications team is not very good and hasn't communicated effectively about any of this. And so, it's taking great heat in the media right now up there in the Northeast. But it's symbolic of the whole wind industry, I think, in the United States, which is coming under increasing opposition, increasing fire from local communities, working to oppose the installation of more of these monstrosities in their midst, because people are waking up to the reality that wind energy is not a viable substitute for real, reliable generation of electricity provided by natural gas, coal, and nuclear power. And I suspect the same thing is going to be happening to the solar business over the months and years to come as well, because of all the land it occupies. There was a big deal in the media last week about a single solar installation think it was in California. I may be wrong about that. So this thing is going to generate 1/2 of a gigawatt, which is half of a standard gas plant of power generation, and it covers 10 square miles of arable land. Okay, 10 square miles for 500 megawatts of power. That is not sustainable. It's not acceptable. It's not going to continue happening for for a long term. It just isn't. People are not going to stand for it in a free society. And that is why I always come back to my argument that this energy transition, as it's being structured right now, is not sustainable in or compatible with a free society. And which is, of course, why we see so much pressure coming from the globalist left to do away with democratic institutions in countries like the United States, Canada, and all across Europe. And so this is going to be the major conflict of the next decade as these green policies continue to be pushed by these globalist politicians. And we're seeing pushback this year in elections in the EU. I suspect we'll see major pushback in the November elections in the United States because of this dynamic in this energy transition. So that's my initial rant for today.
Cool. I feel better
Your
now.
opening round.
My opening rant. Yes.
Irina, in the transition that we're seeing right now, you wrote an article on your Substack, which is irinaslav.substack.com. Everyone needs to run out, get your credit cards out, and support Irina Slav.substack.com, and it is fantastic. It was
my own subscription renewed last week, Irina.
Thank you, David.
So did I love mine, by the way. I'm over here being an Irina fan. Sorry, guys. The 2024 Energy Looney Bin Awards goes right in with today's topics. Holy smokes, Batman. Canada and the EV subsidy underestimation. New Zealand and the awkward oil and gas ban. California and the bad oil profits, Europe and the coal embarrassment, Germany and the wind solar subsidy overhaul, Volkswagen and the e-tron miscalculation. What a great list, Irina.
And this is just a very, very small sample, because after I took a week off everything, I returned to a treasure trove of more news. We could have another Looney Bin Awards edition right this minute. It's bad news all around. I mean, Germany first overhauls its future subsidy regime to not guarantee minimum prices for wind and solar electricity. Then it goes a step further days later to say that it will no longer guarantee minimum prices when electricity prices on the wholesale market are negative, because this is happening increasingly often. And they have somehow realized that they will be, covering losses of private companies. And now the UK is being warned that it will not be able to meet its own targets, the government, its wind power targets for 2030, because it's shockingly unexpected and very surprising, because someone thought they could meet them. It's just amazing. The bad news just keeps flooding in.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the flood is, it's expanding, which is why we have the title of today's podcast that we have. It is disintegrating in front of our very eyes.
The bad part is it's at a cost of trillions of dollars to taxpayers.
Yes. When you were talking about those wind turbines, you've probably seen the video that circulated on X a couple of weeks ago, the rendering of how an onshore wind turbine is constructed, the amount of iron that goes into it. the amount
Oh
of
my God.
concrete. This one of the hardest to decarbonize sectors. And they're using these enormous amounts of raw materials to construct an onshore wind turbine. I don't even want to imagine what it's like to construct an offshore wind turbine.
That are as tall as the Eiffel Tower. The Vineyard Wind
Yes, they are
turbine
huge.
towers are as tall as the Eiffel Tower.
Yes.
Think of what the foundation of something like that has to look like. It's unimaginable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a waste of resources,
Yes,
a complete waste of resources.
it certainly is. Stu, I interrupted you a minute ago. Sorry.
Oh, it's all right. I was working on something here. When we had, I was trying to get the video pulled over. This we brought up. Way to go, Patrick.
Great point, Patrick.
I'm so sorry for this, guys. I'm really sorry this is happening to you.
We have NIMBYs that we're talking about, not in my backyard. You know, all the NIMBYs are watching that big solar panel blow up, or excuse me, wind turbine blow up. The microplastics, let me get back to this here in a sec. The microplastics that are being released into the oceans is horrific. Karen Kelly is one of my heroes. He is out and he's leading the charge on saving, pollution from the oceans. The microplastics from wind turbines is horrific. And when you saw the videos that I was trying to technologically bring up here, which I'm having a bit of a cramp this morning, you see it's not just microplastics. These things are like bulldozer type size heavy that they're having to pull off. And the animals are eating these things and it gets into humans. So this is not healthy. This is pollution at its worst.
Where do the microplastics from wind energy come?
The blades.
The blades, as they're turning around, there is an erosion of the blade.
Release them,
and they release them as they
wind power facilities contain plastics.
Oh, fiber. Yes, yes, it's unbelievable.
Next thing you're going to tell me they use lubricants made from petroleum.
Yes, and it just gets dumped into the ocean in these offshore developments.
You know, each wind turbine takes hundreds of gallons of oil just to maintain.
I know. Yeah.
And then the article that went off on one of my news sites was Scotland years ago I think it was 2 years ago, 14 million trees to cut down all the wind turbines. And then the second follow-up story to that was the diesel generators having to run the wind turbines.
It's like battery packs for households, which is why we're not getting batteries, even though we're getting solar panels. Because even when the solar panels are not producing, you need to charge those batteries. You can't just let them discharge and stay empty. And when the solar panels are not producing, you need to charge the batteries from the grid, which is not inconvenient because you will have some backup power when you need it, in case you need it. But, it's not entirely green if you're charging them from the grid, which is not green.
No. And we're seeing there's a pattern, an energy thread of stories going on that I'm watching around the world and on my feeds. And the number one thing I'm seeing is we're not going to be hitting our net zero goals, which I think nobody's going to hit it. We have companies like Renault announced yesterday that they need help on the EV standards because manufacturers, I believe that Tesla will be a survivor in the EV market because of its technology. And
it's an iconic brand. That's Tesla's
advantage. it's an advantage, and their leadership that they're designed as a EV as opposed to coming from the other way. And then you have Ford and you have all the other ones. The EVs are just Ford and everybody else. This story from Tammy, we have to give Tammy even though she's not here, we have to give her a shout out. Ford scraps plan for 1.8 billion Oakville EV assembly plant will retool to make gasoline pickups.
Yeah.
Unbelievable story. And Tammy pointed out to us that it was that Ford got a subsidy of 377,000 per employee that they're now no longer going to use.
Right, to build that plant and open it, yeah, and yeah, but the F-150 Lightning, is a product that people don't want. Okay, this is the problem where our government's trying to force our automakers in this country, in the United States, to make products consumers don't want to buy. And there's a very limited market for an electric pickup truck, and last month, for the first time, the Tesla Cybertruck overtook the F-150 Lightning in total sales, and it's not selling either. Okay, the Cybertruck isn't selling many units either.
It's a horrible looking vehicle.
It's the ugliest thing in history, and it's the worst design ever, but it's outselling the F-150.
No, I think that was the Citroen I ranted about on X. A tiny little thing that doesn't even look like a car. Not that the Cybertruck looks like a car, but it looks like a vehicle. I'd like to put a very interesting comment.
Yes, yeah, that this is a great comment. Because why? Because it was only generating enough electricity to light about 10,000 homes with those 10 turbines, and there's plenty of natural gas and nuclear and coal-fired power plants to take up the slack in that part of the country, at least on these days right now in the summertime when the weather is fairly mild up there. But they've got that grid up there in New England is pretty short of baseload generation as well, in part because of all the millions and billions of dollars their governments are spending on boondoggles like Vineyard Wind. Okay, you're misallocating all this money, all these resources to build generation capacity that doesn't work, that has a 20% efficiency factor, instead of focusing on building stuff that actually works. And the price is going to be paid soon. It already has in some instances, in blackouts and people with unreliable power to their homes.
And you don't miss it when it goes down.
Right. Yeah.
I guess when it happens in the UK, they'll feel it. But if they don't feel it, even then, if they have to shut down an offshore wind farm, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
Except
and the UK is getting
generation capacity that's unreliable.
Yeah. And this Labor government, by the way, is already going completely radical, tripling down on all these failed policies.
As we expected.
Yeah, they're going to completely destroy the power sector in the UK in just a couple of short years, and then they'll have to call a snap election here because they're going to become so unpopular. And the idiot Tories will make a comeback.
And do the same, maybe.
Yeah, probably. It's a terrible situation in the UK. I shouldn't be laughing. I wish Tammy was here to talk about it, actually.
Yeah, well, they voted for them, David.
Yeah.
But you bring up a great point, and I'm going to bring up this. I can't understand her, David. You'd sent this out. This is you want to tee this video up. It is the Polish representative to the EU.
Oh, this is fantastic. Yeah, she just lambasts Ursula von der Leyen.
I'm going to turn the sound down because she's speaking. And so for our podcast listeners, the vast majority of Europeans think of you and your election as president of European Commissioner in the previous terms was a huge mistake. She grills Ursula
for 2 minutes. It's just an epic speech that she delivered. She's wonderful, and she's looking directly at Ursula von der Leyen, who's sitting over there with an evil grin on her face. It's really
the problem is that it won't matter.
right. It
She
won't matter.
is spelling out the truth, and it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because
Because we get to see this on our social media, right? I picked this up from X, Twitter, but the actual legacy media over there in Europe isn't going to air this. So nobody's going to see it other than people who look for things like this out on social media.
But Irina, this is something that I think is really important because people are waking up, and I have to hand it to Elon and X in order to say we're able to find out a lot more about the Trump assassination, and that we have found out that there's more.
To attempt, please.
Attempt, thank you. The Trump attempt, thank you. And that there are multiple shooters. Even the senator said yesterday on
Ron
Maria
Johnson's
yesterday.
report. Yeah.
So this is now out there because of Elon's purchasing of X has made a complete difference. And now we're seeing that around. We would not know that the assassination attempt was going to be this way. Let me share this. I have to hand it for President Trump in his speech. This was very critical.
I don't want to see the screen up there of me. That's very severe, that comb over. That's a severe sucker. What's with that one? It looks okay from the other side. But that is very severe. I apologize. Man, I looked up there. I said, whoa. Look at that. Wow. That's like a work of art.
The man has a sense of humor. If he can make fun of his
sense of self-irony,
right,
which is what the idiots don't have. I'm not a huge fan. He's more of a showman than a politician. But honestly, a sense of self-irony is essential, regardless of where your career is, but especially in politics.
Well, I tell you, the Kremlin put out an article today on the Harris as a president. Putin's laughing already. I mean,
what is?
It's unbelievable. And David, this was a bunch of people kind of looking. I'm going to set this video up. Imagine, if you would, Democrats not knowing what's going on, and you're out for a jog, David. You go out for a jog every day, right?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you're out jogging and you see something.
I go out for a walk every day.
Is this Democrats on that's how they're doing their job, getting ready for this election, right? Okay, watch this one. Here we go. Okay, that is the Democrat Party right now, trying to run down. They're in power right now, and it's not a laughing matter, but we have to laugh in order to get around the censors.
Well, I mean, this is a coup d'etat that's happening in real time, and we can talk about that some other time. But back to the energy transition. Last point on that is it is falling apart, but it's slow motion. It's kind of like this coup against Joe Biden. It's a slow motion, silent coup, not silent, but slow motion. The things fall apart slowly until they fall apart suddenly. Okay. And
that sounded very much like Kamala.
The unwinding of this energy transition, which is not workable, not sustainable, not affordable, is going to progress slowly. I don't know for how many more months or years. And then it's suddenly going to come crashing down in a very disastrous way, probably with some major energy crisis caused by lack of reliability on some countries' major power grids. Maybe the United States, could be the UK, could be Canada. But we're going to have a major crisis, and that's going to lead to a rapid unwinding of all this because it is not affordable, not sustainable, and not workable.
Do you think? I wish Tammy was here, and I noticed that her ex is down right now. So even in her ex, but not her ex husband. She's still married, but I mean ex the Twitter.
Yeah, I'd be worried there for a second.
Oh no, but Irina, your two stories, and let's go. I want to go ahead and fling over here to the two stories. The grid, get ready to pay more for less reliable energy.
You know why? Because of underinvestment and climate change. It has nothing to do with the addition of inordinate amounts of wind and solar to this grid. And this is the Wall Street Journal.
Wow.
They're talking about climate change. They're talking about years of underinvestment in grid resilience and grid expansion. Not a word about wind and solar.
Wow.
I think it's a work of art, a work of propaganda art. And I really didn't expect it. And I'm starting to get fed up with this, with previously reputable media pushing the narrative increasingly, how should I say, harshly, roughly, or blatantly. I don't know, pick your word, but this is not normal, because people can see what's happening, and people will start, and they have started to ask questions. When we didn't have as much wind, power was more reliable. But climate change, no, it's not climate change. It's the addition of unreliable energy sources to a grid that was built for reliable energy sources.
That is true. That is true. You know, people look at the Wall Street Journal, think it's a conservative publication.
It's not.
The opinion page is the only part of the Wall Street Journal that is mainly conservative in nature. The news part of every other piece of the Wall Street Journal is little different than the New York Times.
It's really amazing, because I had this shock with Financial Times, which used to be considered a conservative outlet as well. Now it reads like the Guardian.
Right.
It's really painful.
And it's because, you know, they're all getting all this big infusion of money from these billionaire NGOs, billionaire funded NGOs, who pay them to do all this biased reporting about climate change and the energy transition. So it's the only way some of these publications can remain in business. You know, I would suggest that a lot of the publications we still see functioning today would be completely out of business were it not for all this money coming into them from these NGOs to pay them to slant the news related to climate change.
But why? I mean, what's challenging them? People like us, alternative media, we have no money, we have no sources, we have no, correspondence on the ground here or there, reporting. We can't really compete with them. So why do they feel the need to sell out, essentially, and lose all self-respect?
Because they've lost their audience. Well, they've lost their real audience.
I think personally also, and I could be wrong in asking your opinion, in the U.S., of the major news networks and ownership, there's only 5 to 8 families or entities that own the media. It's pretty easy to do Project Mockingbird.
Yeah, it's the same in chocolate, if you think about it. Just a handful of companies, confectionery business, same in soft drinks.
And I believe Project Mockingbird was put out by the CIA to put out the same narrative everywhere. What was your other story there?
Starting in the 1950s, yeah.
Oh, yeah, the other stories from Bloomberg. And KKR says public markets too short-sighted for energy transition. Basically, the idea is you shouldn't look at bottom lines. You shouldn't look at quarterly reports. You should not expect a quick return on your investment. Or better yet, don't expect any return on your investment in your lifetime. These are quotes. It's an interview with the climate chief of KKR. I don't know what climate chief or head of climate is, but he's basically advising investors to be more patient with apparently what's now being called transition technology, because the return on investment period is longer than what? Nobody expects their investment to be returned within a year. Everybody knows that massive projects have longer return periods. This is not what's happening here. These
Right.
projects, utility scale wind and solar, are not returning money at all. And the more of them we build, the less the chance of return there will be.
Yeah.
Because they're making electricity prices negative. You can't turn in a profit at negative electricity prices because the weather makes you overproduce wind and solar power. It's so idiotic. It's insane.
Right.
And,
But
and
what
it's
happens?
also very obvious. This
How
is
do they
what
respond every time they have a problem? How do they respond every time their lack of profitability becomes a PR problem for them? By demanding the government give them more subsidies. And this
just
is
a
a
little bit
chain,
more. Yeah.
right? And it's never going to end. No amount of
Just
money
around.
for these companies is ever going to be enough.
Yeah.
Well, David, speaking of not enough, Just Stop
Oh,
Oil.
yeah.
Well-
Best story ever. Best birthday present ever.
Yeah, we got the creator of Just Stop Oil tossed in the pokey in the UK for 5 years, 5-year jail term. And my understanding is he's going to have to serve the whole 5 years. That this is a for some reason. I mean, apparently he's not going to be eligible to get out early on parole. Although I'm sure they'll figure out some way to get him out. But that's cool. You know, I mean, I've been saying for years that the only way these traffic stopping protests, or the protests where they throw paint or soup on a masterpiece of art, will ever end is when they start throwing these people in jail with harsh prison terms. And finally, someone in the UK, one judge in the UK, decided to actually follow the law and do that with the fellow who created the whole movement. So that was great news. I laughed for half a day about that one. Trump's 1,000 words about energy. I just thought it was remarkable. I've been following presidential acceptance speeches for 44 years, since the 1980 campaign involving Reagan and Carter. And in most such speeches, they don't even say, the candidate doesn't say anything about energy, or if they do, it's some slogan like "Drill, baby, drill," or whatever, Green New Deal, and whatever it is. But in Trump's speech, I was just flabbergasted. Of course, it lasted 90 minutes, so he had to fill a long time. Said 12,000 words in this speech, and 1 out of every 12 words in his speech was about energy, which is remarkable, incredible, unprecedented in American history, I'm sure. So I thought it was important to point that out, and it shows that this is, and it's because the reason why politicians seldom have ever talked about energy in the past is because nobody gives a damn about it. It hasn't been on top of the voters' minds. But because of all this focus in the Biden administration, screaming about climate change and subsidizing all these unworkable solutions, it's suddenly become a big concern to voters because they see their cost of energy constantly rising. Even though natural gas is incredibly cheap and oil has been pretty steady, your utility bills continue to rise. And they understand now that all this renewable nonsense is beginning to cause that. So at least Trump talked about it in his acceptance speech. It'll be interesting to see if Kamala Harris, or whoever the Democrat nominee becomes, and I'm not convinced it'll be Kamala Harris. It'll be interesting to see what the Democrat nominee says about energy in Chicago in late August. I suspect it won't be much.
No, I think the article was outstanding, and that was on David Blackman, or blackman.substack.com, I believe.
And I wrote it for Forbes, yeah. So, no, the Daily Caller, excuse me. That one was the Daily Caller.
Let's see. This is more of an energy scam in Germany. This is from Win100N. For example, most pump storage power plant projects have been discontinued, even though renewable energies have massively expanded. It's a great comment.
Build more batteries.
Right.
Gary Hager, shout out. It's smoke and mirrors to deceive the population, scam money from them. It's big business for politicians.
It is that.
Pushing, I suspect they will crash the coal plants suddenly.
That'll be a neat trick.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, Robert. How are you?
Hey, Robert.
Let's see. Did I get everybody?
No, there's one more down here from Win 100N. This means the electricity
waste
generated is destroyed. Yeah. Politicians calling. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
they don't build these batteries with each new project because they're too expensive and they also need space.
And they have a 3-hour cycle time in any event, and they're kind of useless. So,
hey, Irina, did the two stories for me today are the global tech outage wreaks havoc, and how was Bulgaria during the CrowdStrike outfit? Pretty calm.
We were generally fine.
Okay, that's good. And I think that that's fabulous. I think that it's amazing that this happened, that CrowdStrike is also a partner with the World Economic Forum, a huge partner. So the timing is very suspect.
By the way, it is also the owner of the Democrat emails from the 2016 campaign.
That is correct.
That disk drive. Yes.
And here's what I thought was funny is that Southwest Airlines was one of the few airlines that could survive this CrowdStrike. But this one sums it up. Due to a worldwide IT outage, we can only accept cash until further notice.
Where did they print this? If their computers were not working.
Right. Exactly. How they print that out? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, but this is why I keep cash in the house.
Yeah, me too.
I also am not a fan of digital currency. Robert, you're stealing the thunder. Did you read my show notes? Southwest Airlines didn't stop. They still use Windows 3.1. I had that. If you go to energynewsbeat.co and look at that article, it is there. I put that screenshot in there that they still are using the old Windows. So thank you, Robert, for stealing my thunder, my brief moment.
God bless Southwest Airlines.
I love Southwest. But this other story of why wind power is useless, this one I thought was pretty funny. The Sierra Club put out, wind power is economically viable without government assistance. I'd like to have a moment of silence for stupidity for the Sierra Club.
Yeah, that's a smelly load of horse manure.
Exactly. So let's go down here to let me just say this. $1 billion wind farm would have a nameplate capacity of 400 megawatts. The nameplate capacity is the maximum output of power when there's sufficient wind. But since the wind isn't always blowing, the average power would only typically be 38% of 400 megawatts or 152 megawatts. This amounts to 1,337 megawatt per year. To meet the 12% interest rate goal, the electricity would have to sell for $115 per megawatt hour. To meet the 8% goal, in case of a guaranteed long-term contract, would need $75 per megawatt hour. Here's where it gets dicey. The marginal cost of generating electricity with natural gas depends on the cost of the gas and efficiency of the plant. Cost is typically $20 per megawatt hour. It's about the dollars. $20 versus $75. Huge difference.
Yeah, and they can't be funded. I mean, they're not sustainable without subsidies, which is why every time a wind operator has a problem, they demand more government subsidies. This isn't hard, folks. This is very easy to understand.
Yep.
Even I can understand it. Is that what you just said?
Even I can understand.
Yeah, and then that KKR guy, that climate head, after saying that we should be more patient with transition technology, he also said that if the transition relies on subsidies, it will eventually stall. Really?
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. And think about what he's actually demanding there in business terms. He's demanding those companies, the management teams at those companies, to abrogate their fiduciary responsibility to their own investors to maximize profits and return on investments. He's telling them to ignore their
Yes.
duties as management teams of those companies. That is, I mean,
Yeah,
you
there's
can't.
a reason investment companies and investors follow the quarterly reports, and it's
Yeah,
not short-sighted. It's
right.
tracking performance. It feels weird to say the obvious so often.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to keep saying it.
There's an article that came out from Energy Live News. The UK must tackle net zero NIMBYs. And
To the ground or what?
the not in my backyard folks. And Tammy
Yeah,
was
yeah. How
talking
do they
about that.
tackle them? Tackle them to the ground and,
Yeah.
I don't know, strangle them or something?
You got to deny them their civil rights. That's what this is why
Yeah,
it's an anti-freedom movement.
And it is going, and Tammy is saying that in the green belts or in the green area in the UK, they're forcing solar panels. They're forcing the farms to go away. They're forcing these things. So as the world evolves into this awakening, if you would, of people tired of high energy costs due to bad management and forcing a transition that can't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, AI is the great equalizer. I don't see AI is not going to survive without nuclear and natural gas. So I see a comeback for natural gas and nuclear because of AI.
But Arena,
Or they will survive at our expense.
right?
But then we should be consuming that AI, so it's a bit tricky. They need
Arena
to survive.
made great points in her Substack today, actually, Irina, talking about that the pushers of the transition have a solution to all of that too, which is to tell everybody to make do with less.
And they're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. In the UK, especially UK and Canada, probably more than anywhere else.
Right.
And, the UK, the problem they got now is that this Labor government is new and you're not going to be able to do anything about them for at least 2 or 3 years. Think of all the damage these are communists.
Unless they
communist
really should.
ideologues. Yeah. I mean, they're going to go crazy here right off the bat, knowing that there's nothing the voters can do to them for 2 to 3 years.
Wow. Patrick asked about SMRs, small modular reactors. I think that they're a big in the U.S. The regulatory issues are still a problem. Even though David and I brought out the Chevron deference talk, we did see 3 or 4 great wins against the deep state's legislation through regulatory actions. Yay. But the regulatory agencies then doubled down in Alaska again and then banned a whole nother group. So it's going to be they're not going out without a fight.
Oh, no, no one should think that. I mean, this is a war for survival. I mean, this is really serious stuff. We laugh about it. I try to keep a sense of humor about it, but this is survival of a free society kind of stuff. It really is at the end of the day. And so, while we try to keep a sense of humor about it, it's this is very, very dire times for us.
I love
Robert De Dominica. Well, we'll see how long it lasts on YouTube, especially. Yeah.
Robert, you bring up an excellent point. And please subscribe to David Blackman.subs. It's blackman.substack.com. IrenaSlav.substack.com. Mine is the Energy Newsbeat.substack.com. And the Nemeth Report. Get out there and follow people that are independent. I'm not a journalist. I'm an independent comedian that pretends to be someone in the energy space. But I can demonstrate to people that on my website that I can have 4 people that Google Analytics, which is run by a bunch of crooks, and my firewall shows 5,000 people at that moment. I can average between 25 and 50,000 people a day on my site, but Google Analytics will show 4 at any given moment. So, Robert, your point is very, very important. Follow and support journalists and or authors, or in my case, comedians that want to be something. Anyway, sorry for.
Can I say one thing about a comment Stu made at the top that I didn't think to remark on, but is vitally important for everyone to understand. If Elon Musk had not bought out Twitter and maintained what is now called X, which I hate, maintained that as a platform where people can speak freely, I doubt any of us would be able to continue doing what we're doing. Well, that transaction, it was so important to the maintenance of free speech and free elections in the United States. It can't be overstated.
Right.
And we all, I'd make fun of Tesla a lot and electric vehicles. He's got a lot more going on than that. And we all owe an incredible debt of gratitude to Elon Musk.
The very fact that the European Commission hates him with a
Yes.
vengeance is,
You can judge a person by the nature of their enemies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I love Elon, and I've invited him on this podcast. I haven't heard back.
Good luck.
Maybe someday,
I've reached out a dozen times to Tesla for an interview with anyone, Musk or anybody else in the management team.
But you know what, guys? I see positive, great things coming around the corner. Good will win. And as a unified front against evil, I think there is hope. I'm optimistic.
Of course there is. What else do we have?
Without hope, you have nothing.
We have facts and hope.
Yes.
And humor. And
yeah, that's a survival mechanism.
It is. And I'll tell you what, I just want to give everybody a shout out there that have been commenting, for all the folks that are on David Blackman's LinkedIn, on my YouTube, his YouTube. Tammy's X is not connected. David's X, and my ex. This is all a great day. And Irina, we got to get yours connected there as well too. So
yeah, maybe if I figure out how to handle YouTube restrictions. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But anyway, with that, we're going to just say, hey, we'll see you guys next week, and stay frosty out there for some entertaining. Reach out to us and follow us all on our Substack. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for chiming in. Bye.
Thanks for the great comments, and have a great week.